Did you shower today? Be honest. I'm definitely getting some of that stank, and I just showered, so it's not me. Either way, I'm glad you're back, and we're gonna read some stories right after you shower. Our first story today is called My Husband and I Think We Dodged a Serial Killer. 2 years ago in the winter, my husband and I bought and moved to a farm in small town Appalachia. We decided to go down to our local Tractor Supply to buy a propane tank, and as we were in the checkout line, a man in his late 50s, I assume, walked in and stared at us. He grabbed a random woman's shirt off a shelf, then turned back, stared at us some more, and stood behind us in line. He stood so close I could feel his breath on my neck. I was extremely uncomfortable, but I figured it's a small town, so everyone is just overly nice. So I turned toward him, smiled, nodded, and said good morning, hoping the man would feel as uncomfortable as I did and back up a bit. He did not. He started talking to us. Initially starting with pleasant small talk like the weather is getting quite cold, this line is taking forever, telling us about him picking up his great aunt from the airport in 2 hours, etc. Then quickly going into more intrusive territory. Where are you guys from? Where are you living now? How old are you guys? For context, though I was in my late 20s and my husband only a few years behind me, our baby faces could have easily passed for 20 or 21. When it was our turn to check out, I said, "Have a good day," to the man and went up to the register. As the guy behind the register started to explain their propane pricing, the man started to flip out. I mean, he started yelling at the poor 17-year-old kid working his weekend job, saying, "I can't believe y'all are charging them so much for a propane tank. And they're young, newlywed couple, why can't you just give them a break?" He just kept going on and on, cussing beneath his breath at the guy behind the counter. That's the worst, when some random guy is standing up for you, but it's weird because you don't know them, and they're trying to take it out on someone, in this case a 17-year-old who's just trying to do his job. Then he once again turned to us. "Hey, I have a 100-pound tank and I'm not using it at my house. I'll let y'all have it for free if you want. You'll just need to come with me." My husband thanked him but declined. He said, "Are you sure? My house is only 20 minutes from here. I could even give you 2 tanks. Again, my husband declined. What? This is so weird. Why is this guy just offering his tanks for free just so that he can have these people over? Obviously, I don't think he actually has the 2 tanks. He's just trying to lure them back to his house. He continued, "We have to do it now though, because I have to go to the airport and leave town in 2 hours." This was a slip up we hadn't noticed until we got home later that day. At this point I said, "No thank you," in a bit more assertive tone. Getting what I assumed was annoyed, he dropped his items and stormed out. As we went outside to go get our tank filled up, the man pulled up into the parking spot next to the fill-up area in his pickup truck. He got out and went back at it. "You should really think about getting a second tank. It'll save you a trip and would last you longer. If you don't want to both go, only one of y'all can just come and ride with me, and the other can meet me at my place." I replied, "No thank you, we're good." Then he said, "Come on, it's a small town. It's safe. I would never hurt such a lovely young couple." That's when you know, why do you even need to say that? That's when you know you have other intentions in mind. And this is more than just a propane tank. At this point, the outdoor employee came out of the propane area and told him to get the freak out of there and to stop bothering us. So he got in his truck that did not have a license plate and drove off. And he doesn't have a license plate on his truck. This definitely sounds like a serial killer. If not early stages of a killer. No, you don't go with people like this. The other day, while filling up our tank, the guy helping us asked us if we ever saw the guy again. Apparently he comes by in the winters when it's quiet and only talks to young couples. Major creepy vibes. Only young couples. I wonder how old this guy was. Did she say? Oh, in his late 50s and only talks to young couples. That's wild, man. I wonder if the store has any sort of record of this guy coming around other times. I know the employee said so, but do they actually have recordings of this and get this guy reported somehow? That would be ideal. But let's see what the comments say. "I would never hurt such a lovely young couple. If you have to spell that out, you're already creepy AF, dude." First thought that comes to mind is he most definitely would hurt a young couple like that. Like, no need to announce that, friend. It's usually a given. Yeah, seriously. Reminds me of a time when I was at an antique store with my sister. I had an item I was about to buy, a small flower lamp. Some old guy comes out of nowhere and starts talking to me. Something like, "It's a lovely lamp. You know, I have 2 more just like those in my basement. I'll give you both for 5 each if you come with me." Obviously, I refused. He seemed really offended or upset, but I can't imagine any sane or non-creepy person would be at that kind of response for a request to go into some strange man's basement. Also, I found it very unlikely he had those flower lamps in his basement. When people start chatting you up in line to begin with, like, people are at the grocery store to just get their stuff and go. They're not there to really make conversation with strangers. That's the first telltale sign that someone's up to no good. Overly chatty and being persistent at what they're asking. Thankfully, it didn't escalate to anything more than that. Next story. Suspicious car followed us home. What can we do? Right off the top of my head, I would say write down the license plate. Don't go straight home if that's what you did. I haven't read this story yet. Make laps around your neighborhood or somewhere further away from your neighborhood to see if they're actually following you. And if so, call the police while you're in the car. I would say that's proper protocol for being followed. But let's see what happens. Hey everyone, I'm posting here because something really unsettling happened recently, and I'd appreciate any advice or thoughts. I also don't want to get too specific with the location details, so I'm just saying the general area. On the night of April 28, 2025, my mom and I were walking home from dinner in Victoria, British Columbia, around 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. We don't have a car, so we were walking along the side of the road when a white SUV type vehicle showed up behind us. We moved over to let it pass, but instead, it stayed right behind us, inching along slowly. As soon as that happened, we were a little bit freaked out. So there goes my protocol right out the window. They're not being followed while driving, they're being followed while walking. And that adds another layer of danger to this situation. So let's update the protocol then. If you can find some sort of narrow alley and walk down that, that's probably your best bet, wherever a car couldn't fit. And hopefully, again, there's some sort of police station or just public place where you can be around a lot of people and not be singled out. Continuing, when we turned onto the main street near our home, the vehicle turned with us and parked across the street. The driver didn't exit or turn the car off. He just sat there. It made us uncomfortable enough that instead of going straight home, we waited for the bus and took that to avoid revealing where we lived. Over an hour later, we returned. The SUV was still there, now turned off and empty. As we passed it on foot and we were coming close to our home, we were kind of behind this van parked in front of our place, so we couldn't really see the driver get back in or where he came from. We heard the car unlock and start up again. We were super freaked out, so we stayed hiding behind the van. There's someone in this white SUV then, and they just happened to notice you coming home and turned the car back on. At this point, I had mentioned to my mom that if we ducked down slightly, the driver wouldn't be able to see us go into our home. So we did that, and I made the mistake of turning off our porch light and turning it back on. A minute after that, the car drove away, and since then, we haven't had any problems. So you snuck into the home and these people didn't notice you, but then you just went inside and told them, hey, we're here, and flicked the light on and off. Please note that we've had suspicious behavior before, like my bike getting stolen from our backyard and even people going into our backyard at night. Additional notes. It was a white male, like over 50 years old. What's up with these 50-year-olds? It's always 50 or older when we start to get into this creep situation. With dark gray peppery hair, short but slightly overgrown. I only saw his side profile, but he looked overweight with a fuller face. No beard or glasses. And from the looks of it, he was wearing a t-shirt. Not sure of the color. About the car, white SUV type, maybe a Jeep. Not like the big vans, but like a regular stubby car. Looked like a really nice model and probably more on the expensive side. Thick black front grille like the heavy bar on Jeeps. Orange headlights, very quiet engine so it could possibly be a hybrid or electric. And I specifically remember seeing he had a document piece of paper on the dashboard sitting up. And I don't remember anything about the license plate. The most important piece of information that you could have possibly gotten from this car, you don't have. But you know it was possibly a hybrid car, and that it had a piece of paper on the dashboard. You paid that much attention to detail, but didn't get the license plate. If anyone has any advice on the information I provided, that would be amazing. I'm really looking for an answer if this was truly someone following us, and if it could possibly be being stalked, there's a better way to say that I'm sure, or if we are being dramatic, and any detail about what type of car that it was would be amazing. Thanks. Oh, and one more thing I wanted to mention is that I did end up looking at articles if there was any weirdos in the past in our area, and there was one article 1 to 2 years ago about a lurker ending up in people's backyards and following people. Well, it's gonna be hard to tell if this is actually someone following you or if this was a coincidence that someone was driving to the same place you were, and when you came home an hour later, they also happened to be leaving. It would be an unlikely coincidence, but also the fact they drove away and you never saw them again is what makes me think it is. I don't know enough about Jeeps to say whether it was or not. See what the comment said. That's incredibly suspicious. The guy knows that there are 2 women living at your place. I'd get security cameras. If you have something like Alexa or Google Home, I'd reconnect them so that the lights, alarms can go on and off when motion is detected. I suggest this to all women who spend time home without a male present. OP says we have motion lights, thankfully, but not security cameras. I'll see what we can do. This is very creepy. Do you have a dog? You should seriously consider getting one if not. They are a good deterrent. Also call the police and report it. If it comes down to either cameras or a dog, unless you're gonna get a big dog, I would go with the cameras. Because along with the lights, you would get a notice ahead of time. Yeah, definitely call the police and report this. Dude's behavior is sus as heck. There's no reason he should have been out there to begin with. I completely agree. As soon as he didn't pass us in the beginning, I knew something was off. Yeah, I guess if he doesn't pass you, again, it could still be a small coincidence, but based on the history of this street and this area, chances are maybe I'm starting to think now this was actually someone stalking you. Yeah, put up some lights, some cameras. I don't know that there's much more you can do at this point. Okay, next story, and our last story for today. Suspicions about a long haul trucker. Let me guess. He's probably 50 or older. That would make the trifecta here for these stories. We'll see. I live outside of the US. About 15 years ago, I went to visit family in the US for a family reunion, so we had to find accommodation for everyone. I stayed with my grandmother while others found alternative places to stay. A man who lived close to my grandmother offered to let my brother and his wife stay with him. He had a 3-bedroom house and he lived alone, so he said he would be happy to let them stay in a spare bedroom for free. They happily agreed. First mistake. You don't agree to stay with someone you don't know just because they live across the street. This is a single man who has a big old house, and from the looks of it, he's probably older than 50. I went with them to see what the place was like. My grandmother lived way up in the mountains, kind of in the middle of nowhere, and so did this man, who was a long-haul trucker. When we pulled up in front of his house, we all talked about how beautiful it was. I wanted to stay there too, and we wondered if he would let me stay in one of his other rooms. That all changed when we entered the house though. While the place was lovely and clean, there was a horrible stench. It stank of rotting meat and solvents, with a touch of air freshener. We could not get away from the smell. It's giving Dahmer, not gonna lie. The room that they would be staying in was access to a sliding glass door. The view was amazing, the smell was not, nor was the locked door that led to the rest of the house. There were 2 sturdy locks on the door, a deadbolt, and a padlock. It was a bit disconcerting to know that they were there to lock something or someone in addition to keeping people out. When my brother asked about the locks on the door, the long-haul trucker said, "I have cats. I don't like them to get out. There are mountain lions and opossums and eagles around here." My brother later told me that he thought about joking, "How big are your cats?" But he thought that might not be a good idea. Okay, so we have a Dahmer meets Tiger King, maybe? Does he have big cats? To access the kitchen, we had to go back outside, walk around to the other end of the house, and go in another door there. Look at all these acronyms. While the LHT was telling my brother and SIL to feel free to use anything in the kitchen and living room. Okay, so LHT is long-haul trucker. SIL, I'm assuming, is son-in-law. We're gonna go with that, because I'm not gonna say all the names out every time. While the long-haul trucker was telling my brother and son-in-law to feel free to use anything in the kitchen and living room, I had a look at the inner door that led into the living room. Sure enough, there was a deadbolt and padlock on it. Of course, the stink was really bad there too. Despite all of this, my brother and son-in-law stayed there for a week. A week? You're gonna stay there for a full week with that smell of rotting meat with a stranger you don't even know? Oh, people. They stayed out of the place for as long as possible, only returning to sleep. My brother said that the guy was weird. Do you think? But he didn't think that anything horrible was going on. That's how it goes. The famous serial killers of the world, you would have never seen them for anything other than normal people. But you never know what's going on underneath, and he's giving you some hints right now with the smell. He probably doesn't clean up after his cats, he said. Cat food smells like that when it's left out too long. We saw the cats while we were there, so that was a possibility. But what struck me as odd was the fact that the cats were out and free roaming. One was even outside. My brother and son-in-law had no other problems during their stay there though. A couple years later, I went back to visit my grandmother on my own. The long-haul trucker came over to her house, and after we had all talked for a while, he brought up my brother's previous visit. "I just want to say sorry for how bad the house smelled back then," he said. "And I want you to know that's all cleaned up now." This struck me as strange because we hadn't talked about this smell at all. When I said that there was no need to apologize to me because I hadn't stayed there, He got upset. "No, it wasn't good," he said. "And I want you to see that it's all cleaned up now. You should come over and see it." What's up with these people being so pushy for you to come over and get a propane tank or come see the spot that you previously visited and it stunk? And I bet you he didn't clean it. I bet you it still stinks. I assured him that I believed that he really had cleaned up, and I didn't need to see it. He kept insisting that I go over to see it though. My grandmother insisted on it too, so I went with the guy to see it. Bro, why? He continued to insist that I see every room in his house. He was extremely complimentary and fawning over me. It just felt weird. Just breathe. Just breathe. His house was very clean though, and the locks were gone. I stand corrected. The cats were still there. Also, I should mention that this guy had also tried to entice my niece to go over to his house on another occasion. He kept telling her about his private gym and all of the equipment he had over there. He kept saying, "You can ride on my exercise bike. You can ride it as much as you want to." I want to puke. When I said that she was probably too little for his stationary bike because she was 8 years old and he was a large man, probably over 50, he said that he could adjust it. So I said that I was interested in seeing a stationary bike that could be adjusted like that. He said, "Oh, that's okay. You don't need to see it. My house is a mess anyways." Then he continued to ask my niece if she wanted to play on his exercise bike. When I called her mother's attention to this, the long-haul trucker stopped asking. My grandmother passed away years ago, and while I miss her dearly, I don't miss having to deal with that guy. We never found out what actually was going on with the smell of rotting meat, because I feel like that's more than just cat stuff, right? That can't just be cat poop. Cat poop has its own, I know because I have a cat who likes to poop a lot and it smells really bad. But you can definitely tell the difference between cat poop and rotting meat. They both stink, but there is a difference, and we never got a resolution on this. Maybe it's in the comments, let's see. Send in a tip to the FBI, please. They think there's around 400 long-haul trucker serial killers that have not been caught. That is a lot. That is wild. So you're telling me on any given day, if I do let's say a 2-hour trip on the highway, I'm probably running into at least one? That is incredibly creepy. I thought, oh my god, doesn't your grandmother get the message that you don't want to go in the house? Maybe he was a hoarder or bad at cleaning and not a serial killer. Trying to get women and girls into his home alone is inappropriate. Not showing you gym equipment that was sure going to have you typing from a basement was scary. I would Google him. He probably wouldn't be telling this story if he had shown you his stationary bike. Okay, almost everything the guy said was loaded with inconsistencies and downright lies and locks due to the cats getting out, then said the cats were seen outside. Plus, who has 4 heavy-duty locks including deadbolts and padlocks on doors inside their own home when they live alone? It would be weird enough if others lived there. Also, that doesn't make any sense that anyone would need those locks to keep cats from getting out. Just a normal garden variety like millions of other people who have cats have. Not to mention, he never explained the cause of the horrible smell when everyone was originally there. That's what I was saying. It wasn't just cat stuff, it had to be something else. Maybe I am being dramatic, but I've seen enough true crime shows and this just isn't normal. But tracks with these sick people and their MOs. My 2 cents, I was getting the vibe that maybe he was getting a thrill from knowing your relatives were there, when all the while behind his locked doors were or had been a victim. Can you imagine if they were actually sleeping there with a victim somewhere locked and you couldn't hear them because they were maybe in a soundproof room behind all those locked deadbolts? And then I feel somehow realized he'd possibly raised some suspicions and needed to do some damage control, and showed up later to try to explain everything. OP, I really think you should send a tip to the FBI. OP replied, "Everything you said is exactly what I was thinking. Thank you. All of these years, various family members have looked at me weird when I brought up calling the police. They say it's no big deal and that the man should be able to have locks on the doors of his own house. I say, but they were inside. People just shrug and look away." And I think that's the case for a lot of things nowadays. People just explain away everything, and you really don't know what people are going through or what they're doing because your brain tries to normalize things and explain them away and pretend that there's no problem. I would be curious. This was 7 days ago as of this recording, so maybe we'll get an update at some point. Maybe they did reach out to the FBI or something. I don't know. All right, well, this has been fun. Thanks for joining, and I will see you when we read the next story. If you don't want to both go, only one of y'all can just come with me. If you don't want to both go, At this point, the outdoor employee came out of the propane area and told him to get the At this point, the outdoor employee came out of the propane area and told him to get the freak out. The other day, while filling our tank up, the guy helping us asked if. The other day, while filling our tank up, the guy helping us. The other day, while filling up our tank, the guy helping us asked us about the day